questions here. I
Yeah.
don't know, but sometimes people come to you with some complicated issues
Yeah.
going on in their life, and of course, we want to be helpful to them. Um, as a Christian counselor, are there some specific, like you have all of this fuzz up here, which is the problem. It's very complicated, and it has so many different aspects to it. But it is, in a sense, typically not the problem.
Hmm.
There's some underlying issue. Are there some specific things that you, as a counselor, can and should look for to help people get to the root of the problem, and
Yeah.
not just be focusing, on all the distracting stuff?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question and something that we all have to deal with. And I think both Ty and Scott will agree that oftentimes the very first session is the most difficult one. Part of it is there's a temptation on our part. We want to solve somebody's problem right away. That's part of it. And the other side of it is, yeah, you hear so much about what's going on, and you see it as a real tangled or complicated mess. So, we have a joke, in the States about Christmas tree or Christmas lights. They always get every Christmas. It seems like we have to untangle these large like balls of knots, and sometimes that's what a lot of these situations are like. So there's a few things to do with it. Number one would be to recognize that, like you just said, there's a root, and that's what I need to find out, and that kind of brings us to that whole aspect of the heart and the heart of man and what the Bible reveals about the heart, which gets us down to when the Bible talks about the heart, it's talking about the immaterial self. And so it's talking about our thinking and our wanting and so on. And then Scripture reveals to us, like Mark 7 talks to us about the fact that the things that we say and the things that we do all originate in the heart of man. So that kind of removes certain things. Some of us may say things and then afterward we go, oh, I don't know where that came from. Well, now we do. Yeah, and nothing comes out of our mouths, and we don't do anything that didn't first originate in the heart. And that's why Proverbs 4 reminds us we need to be very diligent about keeping watch on our hearts, because from our hearts flow the wellspring of life. And so that's what you're getting at there, is recognizing that all of these issues are fruit, right? It's the fruit. If you think about the tree analogy, and that's the fruit that's being born. So a lot of times what I'm looking for is, so recognizing the heart, so that means, okay, I've got to get down to the heart, which is ultimately answering the question, what are they worshiping? Right? The idolatry. What are they worshiping? Because what I'm worshiping can show itself in so many different ways. And so the second then is that in a way to get at the heart would be to look for common themes. As I look at some of these different activities or some of the different things that they do, is there a common theme? So for example, I had a gentleman who came to me. Actually, he came to me because his wife pretty much made him come to me, and she just said he's antisocial, right? We go to we go to gatherings like this, and you're going to find him in a corner somewhere, and he's just antisocial. He doesn't spend time with anybody, and this has got to stop. This has just got to stop. And so he came in to see me, which is funny because I was a youth pastor for a number of years, so I got used to like seeing teenagers because their parents made them come. But this was like one of the first ones where it was like the spouse was saying he's got to go. And so he came in. So okay, we got talking, and so this brings looking for themes. So it brings to a third issue would be ask a lot of questions, because Proverbs 18:13 reminds us that the man who gives an answer before he hears, it will be to his folly and shame. So we want to make sure we're understanding everything. So as I began to ask a lot of questions about the different environments he's in and how he acts like this and da 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 da, he said something interesting. He says, "Well, I'm not always like that." Okay, interesting. So let's talk about that some more. So talk to me about the events where you're not always like that. And he began describing this. Okay. And I asked questions about other areas of his life, and there was a very common theme, and it was pride, Okay, a very common theme of pride, but in particular, which is true of all of us at some point in some level, but it became very obvious to me that he's most comfortable, just in general, when he thinks he's the best. Okay, that's when he just seems most comfortable. And we actually began to find out that that was actually the theme about events or gatherings. That if he thought he was the best person in the room, he was social. And he connected with people and talked with people. But when he thought he was not the best in the room, if he was intimidated by others and thought everybody else was better than him, he went into a corner and just was so intimidated he didn't want to talk to anybody. And so you had all this, from, the wife's standpoint, he's antisocial, right? He doesn't want to be around people. And then come to find out, no, he's proud, very proud, and he wants to be better than everybody. And that's when he's most comfortable in life, is when he thinks he's better than everybody else. And so that was a pride issue. It wasn't an antisocial issue. That was a pride issue. That was the genuine problem. Again, as diagnosed by the scriptures, right? It's taking all that information that we learned, and then now let's run it through the grid, if you will, of scripture, and come to a biblical diagnosis, which turned out to be pride. Great, now we have something to deal with. And now that's the heart level. Do you want to continue to be that way or not? So do you want to worship you, or do you want to worship the Lord? And then that would help us then go into the change process of what would worshiping the Lord look like in those situations now. So that so I think just in answering to your question would be recognizing the heart. Look for those common themes that are going to come from asking a lot of questions and gathering a lot of information about them. So I don't know. You guys want to add anything to that?
Good.
Yeah, we're okay. All right. You guys give me like a 91, maybe. Maybe get an A. So, all right.
We should have brought signs with numbers on them.
Now I'm picturing that in my head now. So.
We've got plenty of kids' toys.